for this part of the service. Let's put everything out of our minds, except the word of God is to be presented to us. We just pray for the ones that are in need to make decisions, Lord, that you will help them to come forward and answer your call. We just pray that you'll watch over us through this next week. Some will be traveling, some will be getting the report back from medical procedures. Others will be finding out other good news and bad news throughout this coming week, Lord. We just pray that they will know that you will be there for them at this time. We'll pray for these things in thy name. Amen.
If you have your Disciples' Heart with you, the article on the front talks about the reality about the things that a lot of people face when they're dealing with life issues. Some could say, is this a message about abortion? And the answer is yes and no. The sanctity of human life is not simply about one issue. It is, in fact, a message that talks about the value of life from the time God started it until the time God brings it to an end. And so, as we talk about these things today, I just wanted you to see, and I ran off and left mine, that we are dealing with the realities of the things that people face. As you look at that, and we talk about the fact that these messages can become just so many platitudes for some people. For some folks, this is a political issue. For some people, when we talk about it, it sounds like politics to them, when in fact, this is a biblical issue that has everything to do with the relationship between God and His creation. So as you look at some of those things, what's it like to be a pregnant teen afraid to tell your parents? What's it like to be a person with few resources and find out that you're pregnant? What's it like to be a family of a senior adult that has so many medical problems, bills, medications, that sort of thing? So you can go through all of those life issues, looking at your quality of life things and whether or not my life, I think, is valuable and worth living at this point based on the quality of my experience. We can talk about all of these things from a personal level, and we can talk about them from an emotional level. But the thing I think we need to focus on in this process is how do we know we're going to come out in the right place. And so I'm going to share with you a conversation, a discussion that would be held, and then we're going to look at the scripture together. In this conversation, it's between an abortion advocate, and so we'll talk about that topic first, and then a life advocate. They're saying the kids. And this is a good day for the kids to go. Bye, kids. I'm surprised they don't say anything. Aren't they polite? Yeah, you figure about that time somebody would say, "Hey, preacher man, let us out!" All right. So the conversation goes like this. The advocate says abortion is a private choice between a woman and her doctor. The response to that is, do we allow parents to abuse their children if it's done in private? This is a private issue for a woman, and if abortion is a private issue, is it okay to abuse a child as long as you do it in private? Well, what would the response be? Of course not. Those children are human beings. Which brings us to the point, what are unborn children? Are they? That's the issue. Well, the conversation goes on. Then the issue isn't really privacy. It's what is the unborn? Well, the advocate says, but many poor women cannot afford to raise another child. So then the response is, when human beings get issue then is not whether they're worth it value-wise in terms of finances, but what is the unborn? Well, the advocate says, well, no, but aborting a fetus is not the same as killing a person. So the issue still is, what is the unborn? Is the fetus the same as a person? The advocate says, but you're being too simplistic. This is a very complex issue involving women who must make agonizing decisions, and that's our acknowledgement today that that is certainly true. But the response is the decision may be psychologically complex for the mother, but morally it's not complex at all. When blacks were mistreated in various societies, do we spin a tale about complex, agonizing decisions for white people in power, or do we condemn the evils of racism? Well, their response, aborting a fetus that is not a person is one thing, discriminating against an adult person for race is quite another. So the response then, so it's agreed. If abortion kills a defenseless human being, then the issue wouldn't be complex at all. The question is, what is the unborn? The advocate, enough of your abstract philosophy, let's talk about real life. Do you really think a woman should be forced to bring an unwanted child into the world? And the pro-life person says, the homeless are unwanted. Shall we kill them? But it's not the same, says the advocate. That's the issue, isn't it? Are they really the same? If the unborn are humans like the homeless, then we can't kill them or get them out of the way. We're back to my first question. What is the unborn? The advocate says, but you shouldn't force your morality on women. So the response is, you don't really believe what you just said, do you? You feel very comfortable forcing your morality on a mother who was physically abusing her 2-year-old, wouldn't you? But the two cases are not the same. Oh, why is that? Because you're assuming the unborn are human, like toddlers. And you are assuming that they're not. So the issue is quite simple, is it? It's not about forcing morality. It's not about privacy. It's not about economic hardship. It's not about unwantedness. It is just one question. What is the unborn? And so as you think about that question, that's just the beginning of life issues as we talk about those. Why we talk about it first of all in this context. Is abortion really a private matter between a woman and her God? Yes, privacy is important. Is it not? Is privacy important? Absolutely. Privacy is important. But we do not allow parents to abuse their children as long as they do so in privacy. Clearly, privacy isn't the issue. And as you go on and on about the true life struggles of people who cannot afford another child, abortion is restricted, women will die in back alley abortions, all of these things pull at emotions. They talk about situations that may be things that will actually happen, but it does not change the reality of what is this unborn child. And so, if we concede that all of those other issues are true, and that if women in this situation, regardless of their age, need support and help and encouragement, they need all kinds of people to come alongside to help them. If we concede all of these things, and yet we still come to the conclusion that that image that we see in that 3D ultrasound is in fact a human, there's only one moral issue. Is it right to kill an unborn child? And so, when does life begin? And we used to struggle with this concept. And people would say, well, you know, the whole story of Adam and Eve, there they were as adults, and they were not alive, and God breathed into them. We're assuming the same with Eve as he did with Adam. And so this whole thing, they came to life because God breathed into them life. And so life doesn't happen until the person actually breathes air. This was a famous teaching by Bill Clinton's pastor in Arkansas. That was something that he heard growing up. The fact of the matter is that baby taking in oxygen while it is inside that mother? Starting when? From the very beginning. There were no oxygen in the cells that were being developed, then there would be no life there. And so, really, these concepts that we have are things that pull us away from the basic truth. You see, our scientific view as people who believe in life is valid because from the very moment of conception, from that very instant of conception, there has to be life. And we know what that life is. It's just in a different stage of development. And so, is there a stage of development when suddenly a person matters? Or is it, in fact, something that every stage of development is a person who has value, who is created in the image of God, and that we should understand deserves to live out the life that God has given him? Well, as you talk about these issues further, you can talk about assisted suicide. And you can see situations in Scripture where there were people, for example, Saul was about to be taken captive. He had already been wounded. He turns to one of the men who is not a Hebrew in the battle, and he asked that that man take his life. He did not want to fall into the hands of the enemy. He did not want to go through the things that he was going to face. And this Amalekite does just that. When he goes to King David, who's now going to be king, and explains to him what he had done, thinking that he was a hero, David killed the Amalekite for taking the life of the king. You see, biblically, you're going to see that life is protected. It is something that God intended to be protected from conception until death. As we go through many passages and face the many challenges of life, so many times these verses that we talk about, like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and passages that we carry on when we have a cold or when we have a little problem with our bursitis. We don't carry those verses into the latter days in our life when we are going through things like strokes and various difficulties. And so we don't want to say that the things that people face, the struggles that they have psychologically and emotionally, the problems that they're dealing with are not genuine, not heartfelt, and not crucial things, but we only have one issue to deal with on a moral basis. What is that child within that woman? Is it a thing or is it a person? And all you have to do is to let it alone through its developmental stages. And you will see it is a human at this developmental stage, it's a human at this developmental stage. I mean, they have taken a baby at 10 weeks that was a girl and removed the eggs from that 10-week-old fetus and used them to give a woman who was